Got this morning. What else we got? Oops.
So this is, I call this meeting to order at 6:02. And this is our city council meeting, City of Soledad Joint City Council Successor Agency Housing Authority and Successor Housing Agency regular meeting of Wednesday, August the 2nd. So at this point, I'd like to call this meeting to order, and just before, just to make a couple of comments in terms of how people can engage or how they can provide public comments in tonight's meeting. So you have several opportunities. One is you can join us by telephone. You can join us via Zoom. The meeting ID is located on the agenda. And for today, the meeting ID is 813-5470-5549. You can also join us via telephone, and the number is 1-669-900-6833. And also you can join us. It's also streamed live via Facebook. However, just to note that those comments that you make on Facebook are not public comments, and you do have to log on to either our Zoom link or to call to make sure that that is recorded as an official public comment. So with that, I'd like to ask the clerk if we can have roll call, please.
Mayor Ana Velasquez,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ben Jimenez Jr.,
Here.
Councilmember Alejandro Chavez,
Here.
Councilmember Maria Corlejo,
Here.
Councilmember Fernando Cabrera.
Here.
We have the quorum.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll move on to our next item, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. And just to remind our public, typically we have Soledad High School and JROTC who are with us on the first Wednesday of the month. They are still on vacation, but they assured me that they will be back on the first week of September for our meeting. So with that, if we can have Councilwoman Corralejo, can you please lead us on the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so at this time, do we have any additions or modifications to the agenda? Yeah. Seeing there is none, then we will move on to our public comments. And at this time, any member of the public may address the city council on items that are not appearing on the agenda and items of interest to the public that are within the jurisdiction of the council. The speakers do have a limited of 3 minutes. Please be brief and to the point. And if you're joining us here in our chambers or you're joining us via Zoom, please make sure that when you speak, could you provide us with your name and address as well. So I will start with any public comments from those that are joining us here in our council chambers. Okay, seeing none, then I will take it out to the public to see if there is any. Let me just make sure that this, we have any speakers from the public. Stephen, I don't see any.
No, they're not.
Okay. Okay, so seeing that we have no public comments, I will close the public comment period, the public comment section, and I will move on to our next item on our agenda, which is consent calendar. And today we do have a consent calendar consisting of items C1 to C4. So any members of the public wish to pull an item for further discussion or clarification? Okay, any members seeing none? Any members of the council wish to pull an item for further comment or clarification? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion to approve item C1 to C4.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Can I get a second? Okay, so we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so motion carries. So we will move on now to our next item in our agenda, which is our public hearing. And today we do have one public hearing that's scheduled, and this is on the transition to the district-based elections for council members proposed district maps. Public hearing number 4. And I do want to make sure that we just kind of go over, we're going to receive the staff report first, and then I'm gonna open it up to the public. I'm gonna open up the public hearing for questions or comments from our members of our public. And then we will come back, we will close the public hearing, and then we'll come back for any questions, final comments from the council, and then council action. So it's my understanding we're making a recommendation. We are not making a motion to approve any of what's presented before us, but we are making a recommendation to be able to move forward for a final vote and final vote in our September meeting. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on what we're doing today. Any questions on that? Okay, so then I am gonna turn it over to our consultant or to our city manager who's received the staff report on public hearing number 1.
So I think our consultant who is going to give the presentation is a little bit late. So I wonder, I apologize. I think she was gonna be here in person. So if we might take a brief moment, she might have not anticipated how quickly we would move through the part of the agenda. So she did say she was gonna be here by 6, but she might be running a little late. So with your permission, if we could take a short, brief break, and I'll give her a call on her cell phone.
Perfect. So at this time, members of the public, we're gonna take a short break and then we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. As we get our meeting started now, it's 6:20. And at this point, we do have a public hearing, and it's our only public hearing for today, public hearing number 1. And it's a transition to district-based elections for council members and proposed district maps. Public hearing number 4. So at this time, we will receive the staff report. We will open up the public hearing. We will close the public hearing, and then we will come back for council action in the matter of recommendation only and not a formal motion. So I will turn this over to our consultant.
Thank you and good evening. All right. This microphone on? No? It doesn't sound like it.
I turned it
Okay, there we go. All right, so it's been a while since I've seen you all. But tonight is an important public hearing to continue this process and hopefully bring it to a resolution shortly. So for any members of the public who are just tuning into this, I wanted to give a quick background to answer the question of why the city is changing its election system. So as a reminder, on February 1st of 2022, the city did receive a letter challenging the at-large election system for city council. And this is something that is happening to many cities across the state. It's not unique to Soledad. And the driving force is the California Voting Rights Act, which is state law that encourages by-district elections. So in order to avoid potential litigation under the California Voting Rights Act, Soledad is making this transition to by-district elections. So that's why we're here this evening. And we've actually already held 3 public hearings. So the first one was all the way back in October of 2022. That was a joint hearing with the city of Gonzales, who is also going through this process. And I want to also mention to the public that Soledad has gone above and beyond the legally mandated public hearings and has also held community workshops and has formed an advisory committee, which met in May and in June to review all of the maps, and they have made a recommendation of their preferred maps to the council. So here we are on August 2nd. On September 6th, we will have the final public hearing. So this is an important meeting this evening to hopefully identify a preferred map and any potential revisions that may need to be made to it prior to its adoption by ordinance on September 6th. And of course, November of 2024, next year, is when the new map will go into effect with those elections. Again, council is well aware of the legal requirements, but for the benefit of the public, I do want to quickly review. We have federal law and state law that give us requirements for what the map should look like. Federal law first says each district should be relatively equal in population size. And I'm happy to report that all of the maps that have been drawn and submitted do meet this equal population rule. We also have the Federal Voting Rights Act, and federal law also gives us the provision that we should not draw any districts where race is the sole or primary factor. So that's our federal law. And then what we're primarily looking at is California law, which gives us 4 criteria rank ordered in importance. The first being that districts should be geographically contiguous. Again, I'm happy to report that all of the maps before you meet that criterion. Second, council districts should try to minimize the division of neighborhoods and communities of interest. And this is where council members who really know your city can really weigh in when comparing one map to another to look at where those boundary lines are drawn and to do your best to keep unified communities that you're familiar with. Perhaps residences, we know there's a part of the city that has more renters that we see. We also know that there's people who live around certain parks or schools that consider themselves a community. Third, under state law is that the boundaries should be easily identifiable. What we look for there is that our boundary lines are following major roads, and following a major road or a waterway or something like that, rather than more minor roads or alleyways and such. Finally, to the extent possible, last on this list in order of importance is that the district should be compact. And I will point out to you where we might see districts that aren't very compact in these draft maps. It's relatively common. What we need to do when we see districts that aren't very compact is explain why they are drawn that way. So in order for it to be acceptable under state law to have a district that's not very compact, we would need to justify it. And hopefully there would be a reason, right? Such as keeping together a community of interest or a neighborhood. Okay. Lastly, state law says we're not going to favor or discriminate against the political party. Well, we don't even look at that data or make it available to the public. So those are our legal requirements for the maps you have before you. There is another consideration on the table here in Soledad, and again, this is something that many other cities also talk about when they are transitioning from at-large elections to district-based elections, is how many districts to draw. So currently, Soledad has 4 council members who are elected at large and a directly elected mayor, also elected at large or citywide. And as part of this transition to district-based elections, the city has the ability to choose a 4-district map that will then mean that the 4 council members are elected by district and the mayor continues to be elected at large or citywide. Or adopting a 5-district map, which would mean that there would be 5 council members elected by district and that council would choose one of those members to serve as mayor. And the way that usually happens in other cities is that that's a rotational mayor. And so every year, the council would vote to appoint one of the members as mayor. So these are significant changes that could potentially affect the structure of the city council. And so this is important for members of the public to just keep in mind when we're looking at the maps. There are 4-district maps or 5-district maps, and then these are the implications they would have on the structure of the council. So there's a total of 7 maps before you this evening. There are 4 maps that have been drawn with 4 districts and 3 maps that have been drawn with 5 districts. NDC is the consulting firm, the demographic firm that I am associated with. And the maps labeled as NDC have been drawn by my colleagues. And then we had 2 public maps that were submitted by members of the advisory committee that was appointed by council. So green, yellow, and tan maps were presented quite a while ago to council. And at the time that those maps were presented, council requested 5-district maps. And the 5-district maps then came later. Those are apple and mango. The advisory committee created a 4-district, well, the member of the public, one is Mr. Ansaldo, who submitted map 401, and the other is Mr. Ledesma, who submitted map 501. Those maps are new and have not been presented to council yet. So I'm going to highlight those as new maps. And then I want to summarize the recommendation that council received from the advisory committee. They did not say, here is one map that we think is best. The advisory committee decided to recommend both 4 district maps and 5 district maps, knowing that that was a big question, and they did not feel able to resolve the question of the number of districts within the time allotted. So they said, of these 7 maps, we think the best 4 district maps are the TAN map and map 401. And then for the 5 district maps, they recommended Apple and 501. So I'm going to review just those 4 maps quickly, but I will be able to pull up any of the 7 maps as council requires for your discussion this evening. The goal for tonight is if you can choose one of these 7 maps to be your preferred map. And if there are any minor changes that need to be made to it, to direct us to make those changes prior to the September 6th hearing. The other thing that happens when you select a map is you will be assigning each district to an election year. So for some of these maps, there's only one option. For other maps, there are multiple options. And so those are listed on the PDF maps, but just so you know where those options come from, this is the process that we follow. So when we're looking at a proposed district, if there's one current or incumbent council member living in that district, we assign that district to that member's election year, 2024 or 2026. If there's 2 or more council members, current council members within that district that have the same election year, right? Again, we'll assign it to that election year. The difficult situation occurs with the highlighted scenario here. If there are 2 or more council members that reside within a district, but have different election years, the decision is on the council to determine whether that district should be assigned to 2024 or 2026. And that will result in one member, whether or not they will be able to run after the completion of their term. Sometimes they would have to wait 2 years till that district comes up again. However, bottom line is that no one's current term length or year is changed. So there's no changes that affect anyone's current term on council. These start to roll out in 2024, and there will the by-district elections. There will be some by-district elections in 2024 and some in 2026. So after the 2026 election, all of the districts will have had an opportunity to elect by district. So this gets confusing. I'm just sort of previewing it for you, and I'm happy to answer questions about specific sequences and specific scenarios as those arise. So one of the things that I noticed is that the maps that were recommended by the advisory committee, you can sort of see some similarities within them. And I want to start with map 401 here. This is a 4-district map. And this map creates a long, narrow District 2 on the east side of town, and has the central district, District 4, comes down south a little bit. So there are some areas on this map where we could say they may not be very compact districts, or the boundary lines are a little jagged, so we may want to look into some of those boundary lines. But in general, this map is different than the TAN map significantly, because the TAN map has a central district, District 3, and then it has districts 1, 2, and 4 around it. So this is a very different approach, right? The other thing to point out is that the map 401 does pair current council members. So there would have to be a decision made about the election sequencing. And this map also creates 2 districts that would be vacant, and those vacant districts would have to be, also assigned an election here. The TAN map has 4 districts, but each of those 4 districts have a current council member residing in them. So there's only 1 election sequence possible with this map. Okay, so you can see once we start getting into 5 district maps, again, it's starting to look fairly different. Map 501 has a southern district, District 4, that really contains all of the Front Street business area, and then for the most part seems to sort of just divide the rest of the city north of the District 4 into 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 5. And again, we're following some of the major roads, following Babylon. And this map also pairs council members. So there are 2 different election sequence options here. And it would create a vacant district, District 5. So I have put District 5 in both of these sequences as waiting until 2026. That's not necessary. You could put District 5 in 2024. But given how small these districts are population-wise, you may actually need to spend some time recruiting candidates to run if you did have a vacant district here. So I've assigned them 2026, but that is something that could also be changed here. So then the other recommended 5 district map is the Apple map. And you can see this is actually wildly different from 501, which does a southern district and then 4 quadrants. The Apple map does the southern district 4, and then slices the rest of the city north of it more in what are more north-south or vertical lines. The Apple map again has 1 current member per district, so there is only 1 option for the election sequence, and none of these districts would be vacant. So I've given just a very, very quick overview. As I mentioned, we can look more closely at these maps if necessary during your discussion. What I am going to do is pause to answer any clarifying questions from council prior to your opening of the public hearing, and then I will be here for the remainder to answer any other questions that may arise. So thank you so much for listening to this lengthy presentation. It's a very important issue before you this evening.
Thank you so much for that presentation. So let me just ask for any clarifying questions from the council that you may have in regards to the information being presented tonight in regards to the 4 different maps. Councilwoman Corralo?
And yes, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, just to the chair, there's a question that I had and I did ask Megan, but I just wanted to put it out there in case anyone else was also clear. I did While I was looking at map 401, I did notice that there was 2 maps of map 401 on our packets. And one of them on one page was numbered, the districts were numbered different than it was on the other page. So I don't know if we could get a clarification for that, please.
Yeah, so the members of the public who submitted the maps numbered them on their own. And then what I tried to do is renumber the maps so that they're more, so that when you're comparing the blue district, that you're always comparing the one that's on the eastern, sort of northeastern side of the city. So that's as uniform numbering as possible. Those numbers don't actually mean anything substantial, so if you wanted totally different numbers, that's fine.
Okay. And so just to clarify, the one that we're gonna be looking at today is gonna be the one that's included in the packet that we just reviewed on page 7, correct?
Yeah, it should be. Does it correspond with this? Because this is the most recent one I'm looking at.
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one question to the chair. So in the presentation, you mentioned that you would prefer to have recommendation of one map, is that, and then proceed from there so that you could kind of tweak it, work with it, and make sure that, you know, the numbers work and that, you know, everything is put together?
Yeah, that's the ideal.
Okay.
If it's not possible, then the second best thing for you to do would be to narrow down to 2 maps and make that final decision at the September meeting. If you narrow down to 2 maps, we'll still introduce the adoption ordinance. We'll just leave a blank for the map name, and it will be inserted after you make that decision.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So actually, I have 2 questions. So with that, is there any, the committee recommended 4, 2 and 2? Would it be possible to first make recommendation whether it is a 4 or 5? And then go directly into the 2 options that we have? Or what would be the best, just get 1 or first recommend 4 or 5 in districts?
This is a really important question. So first, I want to say you are not limited to considering the 4 maps recommended by the committee. Those were just the ones I wanted to highlight this evening because 2 of them are brand new to be presented. You actually have all 7 maps before you. So it may be a good idea to first resolve the number of districts before then you do narrow automatically which maps are on the table. And I will defer to the mayor in organizing this conversation the best way. You know, once you know how many districts, then it becomes much easier to arrive at a consensus. Usually we'll hear from each member what their preferred map is and some reasons why to see if the consensus emerges.
And the second question is, could you talk a little bit more about division of neighborhoods? Because I saw one of the maps has all the business sections, but isn't that dividing from the rest of the city? If one of our council members gets all the business area, then from my perspective, that is dividing that from the rest of that.
Yeah, so it's important to note that the business area in Soledad also does have significant residential mixed in. And that other cities take different approaches. So there are pros and cons to dividing your business area and keeping it together. Sometimes I've worked with some cities that want to try to keep, when they have multiple business corridors, they want to keep them together within a district. you know, given that the one that came up previously in Soledad was the Front Street corridor, it's sort of the main, you know, it may actually make sense to break it up. However, I would only caution that you want to be thinking more about residents than about businesses. So you want to be thinking about, you know, where do the people live that are going to be represented by that council member? And in a lot of these maps, we do see that you get a majority renter district. That's one thing that I highlighted, not with all of them, but that's usually around this sort of west side of the city and south of Gavilan is where you tend to see a lot of renters. So districts that that are drawn over there, you know, there's a community that has a lot of things in common if they're all renters, right? But we actually didn't hear a lot from members of the public about specific neighborhoods, which is why I put that before the council to weigh in on, because members of the public you know, seem to be a little more interested in 4 or 5 districts.
The reason is because I heard a couple of people thinking, and that's probably what they always think in that sense, is that if you have all the business in one district, then the person that is in that district will focus more in the businesses or connecting with the businesses than actually connecting with the residents.
Well, the other thing that's important to remind all members of the public is that while council members will reside within one district and be elected by the voters of that district, they will still be representing the city as a whole and making decisions for the best interests of the overall city. When it comes to things, I've heard in other cities them say things like, well, we should all get some of the business district because when we're campaigning and running for office, we want to put our signs in the business windows. We want to do this and that. We want them to donate money to us or whatever. So we should all get a piece of that pie. Is that an important consideration? No, that would be only after you've considered all of the legally required considerations. You know, do you even want to have that be a point of comparison?
But that happens. That happens.
I know.
So what is the best way that we can avoid that so that everybody has that equal opportunity to run for office?
Well, the good news is that all 7 of these maps are relatively, that there's equal population living in each district. So they're balanced in that way. What we want to look at is where are those boundary lines, and if those boundary lines are dividing what would be a neighborhood that would come together to help, you know, maybe there's a homeowners association or a bunch of parents who all send their kids to the same schools, right? We know that the school district, which does not have the same, you know, boundaries as the city, but they also made a switch to district-based elections. And that reminds me of one more thing I wanted to share with you is, and I'm just using this map as an example. You can see up here at Terraza Street that there's a really strange arm that comes out from District 2. And the reason that this is coming out always like this in the maps is that that's one census block. And it actually spans all the way from West Street to down to Orchard Lane across the top of the city there. And I wanted to let you know that NDC worked with the school district and we actually did divide that block. So if that's something that you think would make sense to keep a neighborhood together, we can eliminate that arm and incorporate it into a district. So that is an option that will be on the table when we talk about what are the minor revisions that you may request. I know I went off your question there totally, but I didn't want it to slip my mind.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions? No, Councilmember Cabrera?
No,
Okay, so, Mayor Pro Tem, do you have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
I have a couple of questions, and thank you for clarifying that, because I know when we were talking about the criteria for the maps, and especially given that loop in Terraza, it doesn't seem, I mean, it doesn't seem contiguous, right? So it doesn't meet that criteria. And so, at least not in some of the maps that we see before us. And so I guess I'm just trying to understand, you said that you talked to the school district and that census, because it is a census tract, so it kept it intact, but that it can be divided. Can you elaborate a little bit on more? What does that mean? So that means,
Yeah, so what that means is that, NBC makes it our practice to never divide census blocks unless the council or a governing body has requested that. The reason is that is, the smallest geographic unit that the census counts population at. So when we start breaking them up, we have to estimate population. And so we want to do that, we want to avoid doing that whenever possible. However, we have already done that for the school district, so we already have estimated the number of the population that's there at Terraza Street versus the rest of the block. So we've already done the process of making those calculations, so I don't think it would be as difficult at all to do here if that were something that the council thought made sense, given the other criteria that the mayor has mentioned.
thank you for explaining that. Then the council, the district made that choice to break that up, and you have those numbers. Okay. So we can decide whether we want to do that or not, given that we want to make sure that they're counted under the census in terms of their population. Okay, and then I have another question and clarifying, because you talked about map 501, and you mentioned that in this map, we are presented with a possible challenge that I know I've heard from prior from the council previously in terms of this whole process of redistricting. And that is because it's smaller population blocks, the concern about, you know, just getting enough people to run for office, given the population base of these. And I just want to clarify, because I know, like I said, we have concerns from previous council members, and I think Councilmember Chavez brought this up previously in terms of just, you know, the concern of not having sufficient people to run for office once we transition into the district.
Yeah, so I don't have the exact ideal population size in front of me, but I'm estimating it. When you're looking at a 4-district map, you're looking at each district representing maybe 4,700 people-ish. And then when you're looking at a 5-district map, each district is going to represent like maybe 3,800 people, right? So there's a significant difference in the population size of the districts. And in smaller jurisdictions, we do see that sometimes might make it difficult to find someone to run. I will say, there's almost always someone that ends up running. And the question sometimes is, will they be ready to come forward in 2024, or will there need to be some time to really publicize that these are by district elections? In that case, you might want to make the vacant district come up in 2026. So there's time to send postcards to all the residents of that district, letting them know that this is an open seat and that, you know, it is, here are the boundaries of the district. And here's where you go to find information about filing candidacy.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think for me, it was just a clarification that because it's smaller population base, there was some concerns about moving it to this process, but this is even more of concern, cutting the districts into smaller, into 5 districts. So thank you for clarifying that. And then my other question to you is, I know in the maps that were presented to us, we look at the deviation size, and you're looking at the maps to ensure that there's the least amount of deviation, right? And then also you're looking at the maps to look at the boundaries that provide the easiest kind of, as you mentioned, contiguity and making sure that you're not, that you're keeping those neighborhoods intact that are considered neighborhoods. So I just wanna, you had mentioned earlier that all the maps meet the federal population rule, but can you clarify in terms of the deviation, what is the ideal deviation that you don't want to exceed, given that there is a lot of, all these maps have different deviation percentages? So what is ideal for us to be looking at?
Yes, so this is a good question. So the federal courts have said it's permissible to have up to a 10% total deviation. What that means is the difference between the largest population district and the smallest. When you're looking at an individual district, you know, that number is going to be much smaller, but for these maps, all of these maps have under 8%. The map that has the highest deviation has 7.37, and that is the 4-district green map, 7.37, and that's the highest of all of these maps. NDC historically has recommended to our clients to try to stay under 8%. So you're meeting that threshold. However, less deviation is always better.
Okay. So which one did you say that had the 7.37%?
That's the 4-district green map.
Oh, the green one. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are the, at least the clarifying questions in terms of the information that you presented based on the maps that are before us today. So with that, council, if we don't have, so these are all of the questions, and what we'll do right now is then I want to make sure that I open up the public hearing. And so at this point, I will open up the public hearing and we will take comments from the public. I'm going to take comments from the public that is joining us here in the chambers first, and then those that are joining us via Zoom. I do want to make sure, because I know that there's, you know, obviously people are very passionate about whether it's, you know, a 5-district, 4-district map of the discussion. This is a very important process for our residents, and I think, as was said earlier, it's really looking at what's in the best interest of our community, not what's in the best self-interest of any individuals of our community or even us as council members. It's what's in the best interest. So with that, I just want to make sure that when making public comments, please refrain from making any personal attacks on anyone. Please refrain from making derogatory comments. I ask that we all be respectful and keep our comments specific to the items of discussion before us. But if someone, and we do have 3 minutes, so we will not allow people to go beyond the 3 minutes that are allotted as part of the public speaking process for our public hearings. And if anyone does get out of line and does want to make derogatory comments, I do have reserved that right as a chair to be able to stop those comments from moving forward. So I just want to make that clear as we enter into this discussion. So with that, I will open it up, but I know that we do have some written public comments. So can we take those written public comments first, and then we will go out to those that are joining us here in the chamber.
We received 2 written public comments. Good morning, I am Inaida Flores, and I have been a resident of Soledad for many years. I am in support of the 401 map because it is the most equitable. Thank you. Second public comment. Hello, my name is Fernando Ansaldo Sanchez. I'm writing a public comment regarding the districting process. I wanted to express to the council that we need to adopt a 4-district map, and we need to keep the mayor at large. Taking away the power of the residents of our community to elect their mayor goes against our democratic process. Most cities of our state that operate within a district system have an at-large mayor. When asking the folks that did the map drawing, they stated that they were not aware of many cities that are opting to rotate the mayor. When asked for the benefits of this, none were articulated. I am concerned with a rotating mayor for a couple of reasons. One being that if we have 5 districts, this means one person may be elected for a 4-year term without being appointed mayor, which is not fair. My second concern is that the district whose turn it is to have their elected official become the mayor may become too busy with mayoral duties to handle concerns of their constituents. I have yet to hear from the council what the benefits are of having 5 districts in Soledad. I asked the council to articulate these benefits at this time. Additionally, I would like to point out that the subcommittee unanimously voted to recommend the 4 district maps. However, the committee only recommended 5 district maps by a 3-2 vote because several members of the community attended the final committee meeting to oppose a 5 district map as they are against not having an at-large mayor. Those interested in becoming mayor should run instead of appointing themselves based on their tenure on the city council. Please consider the community. If you are interested in moving to a rotating mayorship, put it on the ballot and let us vote. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. So at this time, I will open it up for those members that are joining us here in our chambers. And if you want to come up to the podium and please state your name and your address for the record.
Hello, council. My name is Brian Deanda. I live in 598 Camino Arroyo. And I wanted to express my support for map 401 and for that case, any map that would be a 4 district. I believe that is the best option available for our community. I believe that it offers a superior distribution of the city, ensuring a more equitable representation for all residents. Map 404 is also the only map, as one of the council members mentioned, with the more even distribution of the business corridor that is Front Street. Additionally, I want to strongly oppose the alternative proposal of having 5 districts. I believe that having 5 districts approach would diminish the voice and influence of our community, and by taking away our chance to vote for a mayor, which we already are one of the cities with the lowest voter turnout, which kind of signals to us as a community that our input and voice will be somewhat irrelevant to this council. Again, I support map 404, and I believe that this map will give us a stronger and more inclusive city where any individual feels heard and valued. Thank you.
Thank you. Any, at this time, any other members of the public? And we do have translations, just so our public knows that there is translations available. And we will make that available for members that are here as well, if that's needed. So también nomás quiero decir que hay traducciones que se están llevando a cabo por parte de esta junta y también miembros que están con nosotros aquí o que están vía Zoom. Tenemos a personas que pueden traducir. Thank you. Sorry.
Good evening, Councilman. I'm a resident here in Soledad, and I am up here in support of the 4 district maps. And the strong rejection of any consideration of the 5 district maps. After looking into this, deeply, I feel like this is the most equitable option for us. Back in 2003, the very same council, including, well, not this very same council, but Mr. Hernandez was part of it, voted to keep, you were not part of it? No, okay, well, soon after. Voted to make this position at large back in 2003. So I want to pose that question to the council. Why are we entertaining an idea to regress on that option? If the voters of Soledad overwhelmingly voted to approve this by 87%, over 87% to go at large, why are we now considering moving back to appointed mayor? Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have other members of the public? Okay, so seeing there's no other members of the public, from those here in the chamber, then I'm gonna take it out to Zoom. And let me just make sure that I'm able to see. Stephen, do I have, I think I'm just seeing myself and.
Those are the button that says attendees. There at the
Oh,
top.
participants, got it, sorry. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I will take it out to members of the public, just as a reminder, we do have 3 minutes, and I will start from the hands that I see on, at the top of the list. I do see, Brenda Granillo, if you can unmute yourself, please, and, we have 3 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor and City Council members. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I am a resident of Soledad for over 30 years. I live on Portola Street, and I absolutely echo all the public comments you have heard this evening. I'm advocating for 4 districts. I think that the green map is the most equitable, given that these are all areas, neighborhoods, and developments that are aged around the same time, and we want to factor in aging infrastructure, roads, parks, schools. And so I think that the green map is most equitable. I, as a registered voter and go out and vote, think it's very important that my voice is heard, my vote is counted for who is mayor. I think that we should have a mayor at large. Looking at our voter history, our voter turnout, many concerns with having 5 districts and having the council appoint a mayor. I think a mayor should run. I think a mayor should be elected. And if they want another term, it should be voted by the people. So again, I'm advocating for 4 districts. I think, we made this decision back in 2003 to have a mayor at large. Why are we going back? We should be moving forward. We should be progressive. We have a beautiful city and community, and we need to elect a mayor who is going to represent the people who turned out to vote. So with that, thank you for your time. And again, the green map, I think, is most equitable. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And we will now move on to Lupita Arroyo. Lupita, if you can unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lupita Arroyo, and I unfortunately couldn't make it in person. I'm here to state that I'm in favor of keeping the 4 districts and the 1 major at large, specifically the 401 map. The reason behind this is because having the 5 districts eliminates the ability for the community to elect the mayor, which does not fall under equitable guidelines. I also want to bring awareness that the subcommittee had a unanimous vote for the 4 districts map, and 3-5 for the 5 districts map. One of the major reasons is we had several committee members come forward and speak against the 5 districts, and everyone who I spoke to around the community is either not aware that this is happening or is in favor of the 4 district map. If you wish to move forward with the adopting of the 5 district, please pass a ballot and allow the community to participate in that decision. Also, please state the benefits of moving forward with the 5 district maps if it's in the process of being adopted. I have yet to hear any positive terms of why it needs to be adopted within the city. Also, if we can please explain how the community can be aware and continue to be involved in this decision making. I've heard that there's going to be another meeting in September. We can have some specific the guidelines of how can we attend, when it's going to be attended. And I love my community, and I think everyone's voice should be heard. So please hear them out. Please hear us out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lupita. Okay, and now I'll move on to Eva. Eva, if you can please unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. My name is Eva Bañuelos. I live at 289 4th Street. I do apologize. I'm not in person. I am actually teaching here at church. But anyhow, I am echoing everything that everyone has been stating. This is this is just, bottom line, guys. Why are we trying to fix something that's not broken? Okay, again, I'm echoing everyone. Why are we trying to, trying to transition something that may not work? And you know what? Me as being a resident here over 30 years, I love my community. And of course, I am a registered voter. So I want my voice to be heard as, me voting. When I hear about when I share these concerns with other residents, they're not aware of it. So of course, these are the ones that are voters. So I share with them, okay, get involved, guys, get involved. We need to find out what's going on because, this is our community. And I say when people say, what's going on in Soledad, it's like, you know what? This is what's happening in Soledad because that is what is going on. But again, I am again in support of the zones, the 4 district zones, and that's the best approach. Again, we should just contain that, not change it. And again, why are we trying to fix something, guys, that's not broken? Okay. Sorry. Let's not try to fix something that's not broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other hands raised for public comments. Oh, I see 2 more. Okay, so Frank Corralejo, you can unmute yourself. Frank, can you unmute yourself? Frank, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Now, yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
This is like this LULAC stuff, all this stuff, this district voting is just like nuts. One time before all our raza, we're all together. Ponte tus pilas, raza, por favor. Ya no están así. We're all together. Everybody could make a conscious decision. Everyone could. Me, not are you? And who's at it? Our raza. The 5 districts, it gives everybody equity. Everybody has the chance to run for mayor position. Everybody in their district gets the chance to run for a council. Everyone gets it. They all get it in the district. If you're a council member in your district, you get more time. You get more time to work with the people in your district to concentrate on the important things. Housing, you guys want housing, affordable housing, education, everything that, that is not being done or that is getting done. It's like that council member is going to get to be able to focus more on what they need to do. And then the mayor will work together with them, the mayor that is there at a certain point in time. That doesn't mean if you guys go 5 district that, that our mayor is not going to be able to run again, or she's not going to be able to run council again. That doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything. It's going to be all the same. I think it's just going to give everybody a more chance to do what they need to do for their district and be held more accountable and work together better. But some people want 4 districts, 5 districts, I think is better because it's just going to give everyone more of like a break. For example, I don't know how many minutes I have. For example, instead of a person trying to contact 5 council members to talk to them, they can go to their council member. Simple. Instead of calling all these other 5 or 4 council members, it's simple, and you're going to get more. You're going to get more results out of it. 5 districts. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. So we'll move on to Marta Zarate. You can unmute yourself.
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Marta Zarate y soy residente de la comunidad de Soledad por más de 18 años.
Marta.
Como miembro de la comunidad, exhorto a todos ustedes a pensar siempre en el bien de la comunidad, además de que la comunidad tiene el derecho a elegir a su alcalde y no solo rolarse el puesto. A mí me gustaría que ustedes supieran que yo apoyo el mapa 401 porque creo que para mí está mejor diseñado con mejor equidad para la comunidad. Simplemente.
No, Marta, te perdimos. Marta,
Sí, dígame.
te perdimos. No, no escuchamos tu último comentario después de el mapa 401.
Pienso que es el mapa que está mejor diseñado con mayor.
Ok, Marta, te perdimos otra vez, perdón. Okay, do you want to, vamos a traducir lo que dijiste.
So in a nutshell, Martha Sarte, resident of Soledad, is advocating for 4 district maps. She wishes for map 401 to be considered. She believes that it offers best representation.
Okay, gracias. Perdón. She had 1 minute. She's done. Okay, okay, gracias, Marta. So, tratamos de capturar porque se fue la conexión. So we lost connection. Okay, let me just do one final call out for any of those that are joining us via Zoom. This is the last call for public comments. Okay, so seeing we have no public comments, then I will close the public period and I will bring it back for council consideration on how to move forward. So we do have a couple of things that are that we need to address first. And I think as was mentioned, we have the two either first, before we move on to some of the other items of discussion, let's discuss in terms of the 4th and the 5th district maps that we have before us. We have the recommendations from our advisory committee, but we have a total of 7 maps that we can discuss.
Through the chair, I just want a little bit of clarification, Brian, is that your name?
Yes.
You first you say 401 and then at the end you say 404. So you're going for 401?
401.
401, okay. All right, just a clarification on that.
Yeah, it's map 401 in terms of the advisory recommendations. Okay. So council, let's move on to have the discussion in terms of the information that's presented before us and going from, let's have the discussion first on the 4 or the 5 district maps concept before we get into the other components in terms of the maps that we want to move forward. And I know that there was a recommendation to be able to have 1 map before us, but we obviously can choose to narrow it down to 1 map where we can have two maps to move forward, or with the discretion of the council likes to, whatever the council wishes to move forward with. So let's resolve that first. Let's resolve that issue and discuss that issue first in terms of districts 4 and 5. So I will open it up now for council comment and discussion on the 4 or 5 district maps. And at this point, I'm gonna open it up to the council members who want to speak. I'm not gonna go through the way I usually do one by one. I think this is an opportunity for us, if we choose to speak, that, you know, we go ahead and move forward with why we want to choose one over the other. And there was a lot of questions in terms of why, for us to provide our and elaborate to our residents why we think one or the other is the best interest of the community. So I will open it up to the council members that wish to move forward.
So for me, I mean, through the whole process, I was never in favor of doing districting. I don't think that from the beginning, I felt like it was a process that we weren't ready for, that I don't think we have the population for, and it was mentioned by the mayor that I had made some comments in regards to what happens when we have small districts. And I think it's across the board. If it's 4 districts or 5 districts, they're still going to be smaller. As far as representation is concerned, currently, each one of us as council members are voted by the entire city of Soledad. So all of us are at large members. The mayor's at large, the city council members are at large, so everybody's at large. And so it's a huge shift to go into going from all of us being at large to shifting into districts. And so I heard folks today from the public, and I've heard people in the community speaking to me about this item. I've gotten folks who really like, having 4 districts, and I've had people who don't understand what the process is. And I've gotten folks that are saying, well, why do we have to do this at all? And then I've heard folks that say, well, it sounds like if you had 5, it seems like it'd be more fair. So I've gotten it across the board of why do we have to do it? Why don't we have 4? Why don't we have 5? What is this all about? So there seems to be a lot of questions, and I think that in the public comments that were made today, there's still those questions. For me, it is trying to figure out that balance of being equitable across the board, because I think that one of the things that looking at this, when you look at what has happened and transpired in the past, that it was a revolving mayorship, it switched over to an at-large, as it was pointed out. But also, there's never been this districts here in the city, and we're here before today making that decision on how we're going to move forward. And so for myself, it is a tough decision to look at 4 districts, look at 5 districts. But for me, to try to figure out how to be equitable across the board, I'm really leaning to do 5 for the reason that it makes sense. If we're going to go from an entire at-large, then we should go entirely the way we are. There's 5 positions, and we should look at it that way. But it's not an easy decision to make. I thank the public for the comments. And at this point, we have to thank LULAC for bringing this forth, because, we didn't want to do this, but it was brought forth. And now we're having to deal with this tough situation of trying to figure out how we're going to do this in an equitable way, in a fair way. And so looking at all different angles, I'm still trying to figure this out. But right now, that's what I'm leaning towards, because it just makes more sense for me that if we're going to go from everybody being at large, then everybody should be in a district. And that's the way I'm seeing this right now.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Chavez. Council, feel free to make your points.
Through the chair, I'll go next. I wanted to thank everybody that's here, everyone that called as well, people that send me letters, and I see one here. I did make it a point to have conversations with people, to reply to emails or Facebook messages. I shared the districting announcement that the city did, and I think Megan knows, and if our attorney was here, he would know that I would go on there, make sure we have, information that's unbiased, that's factual. I think just yesterday, the day before, I'm like, hey, I noticed this, let's make sure that. So that was really important to me. And I really thought that we were going to start out talking about maps, but I am kind of, glad. I think that, we decided to first go based on the districting. And I want to say, I know for me, it's at first I started watching meetings. As you guys might know, I've been on council for less than a year. I started watching council meetings. That's how I got interested, to sit up here. And I recall actually watching the meeting where it was first brought up, the districting was brought up, and I don't recall. I think there's some familiar faces that were sitting here at the time, and some are new. But I remember at the time the council, as I don't know the individuals, but as a body, as a whole, were upset, and they felt that that LULAC was bullying them. I know I recall hearing the word bullying. We're not going to let them come from out of town and bully us, tell us what to do. And they were like, no, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. And so that was my first ever, I guess, introduction to the whole districting. I had never heard about it before. And then after that, of course, they changed their mind, and so we are where we are at now. And since then, I've been doing more research on my own, and I do feel that it is a equitable thing for all and, you know, at first I was confused. I was like, you know, but everybody that was sitting up here was Hispanic. I know Carla Stowbridge. You know, her grandma, I apologize, speaks only Spanish or spoke only Spanish. And I remember her saying that she was so proud of it too. So, you know, she also was a Latina. So there was pretty much a whole council of Latinos sitting up here as we are now still, right? And so, you know, I think when I step back and I look at everything from back there and look at where we are now, you know, I do feel that for me at least, it's, and I guess I'll just say it straight out. There's a lot of division up here. I don't think that that's a surprise to anyone. I think everyone sees it. We feel it. I'm new. I felt it right on my first day when I was here. And I know the staff feels it. Our community has to feel it as well. You know, and I really just, you know, think that we should all work together and that more can get done if we all work together. And so with that said, I really am in favor of the 5 districts. And my reason is again, because, you know, I feel that if the mayor position were selected in that fashion, there would be representation of the people because the people voted for their council members to represent them, and then them selecting in whatever that process is gonna look like, the mayor would be representing the people because they voted for the council, and I feel that that would make the mayor more efficient. I think it would make us all more efficient so that instead of arguing, we would all be working together for the betterment of our community with, you know, hopefully joint goals that we have. And also I think that us working at that, we would be more available to the people, working in that manner. And I really feel that it would benefit our community.
Thank you for those comments.
Yes, I would like to make a comment. So first, I think I agree that our residents noted everything and they want a solution. And 87% voted to keep the mayor at large. 87%. So that means that a lot of the people out there are actually expecting us to keep the mayor at large. When it comes to the district, if we go to 5 districts, that means that in some of the elections, only 900 people voted. Why? Not because they don't want to vote, it's because they're tired of the same thing over and over and over and over again. And I think that the people spoke at that point and in this meeting that we are better with 4 districts and a mayor at large. Why? I would like to be a mayor, but I don't want you guys to put me in the chair. I want the city to put me in the chair because I'm going to be representing that city. I don't want you guys to vote for me right here because that is the responsibility and the right of the people. The saying is for the people, by the people, no, from the council to the people. And I think that we have to consider that. That is not a divisive or not an agreement. If all of us would be in agreement, then we will find solutions for the people. Not for our own interest, not for our own expectations. Most of the people voted to keep the mayor at large. Most of the people who spoke here spoke about 4 districts. Maybe we should start paying attention to what people is expecting of us. We're not here for individual thoughts, individual purposes, not so that I can put that in my resume. We are here to serve the people. I mean, if we go into 5 districts and only 900 or 800 vote, so whoever, even if it is a district with no representative running, so what is it? 20 people are going to vote for that particular individual, and I don't think it's right. How can we call equity when only 10 people are going to vote for you out of about 9,000 registered voters? They deserve the right to elect the mayor, not us, them, the people of Soledad. And if they spoke in 2003, I think that either we move for a district voting, or we put it in the ballot so they can make a decision, not us. It's not up to us to decide what the people of Soledad needs. Is there right? And I think we should come to this conclusion. It is their right to elect the mayor. And if any of us want to run for mayor, we have the right to run in 2 years, in 2004. Any of us could run for office. Any of us. So let's do it. Let's get the respect and let's get the vote from the people and keep it like that.
All right, well, this is my camera.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank everybody for showing up today and taking the time, because I know it's your time. And for those that are calling in, and also for those that attended the different workshops. In addition to, I'd really like to thank the advisory committee for the recommendations that they brought forward to us, because of the fact that ultimately we're gonna make that decision. With that said, the two recommendations, are the two that I would consider. Map 401 and map 501. And a couple of items on there is that, first and foremost, all council members were elected at large. The people said who was gonna be on this council, and they put us here. And then, so now that's gonna change. That has changed because it has been forced by LULAC because of the California Voters' Right Act, naturally so, that was passed in 2001 to move this type of voting for those that were underrepresented, have representation. So with that premise in mind, then it would most likely be then to recognize the voting population, recognize the size of the districts. So the districts presently, 4 districts are 4,700, I believe. And then if you go 5 districts, they're 3,800, approximately a swing of 900 and something. I ran the numbers already. To look at both of them to make an educated decision. In addition to, also want to thank those that emailed me as well with their recommendations, because I took that all in consideration. And I looked through all the maps themselves and what was recommended. And because of that fact, and the 2 recommendations from the advisory committees were the ones I considered most. So understanding that everyone up here was elected at large, and then that changed in 2003, and the mayor was elected separately from the council. The citizens did not get a choice on that. We got challenged to move into districts. No input from the citizens on us moving into districts, but we were challenged because we're going to get into a lawsuit. So with that said, then we have to look at what is in the best interest of the city. So is it better to have a smaller district creating 5 districts, or the larger districts to have 4 and then ignore the representation and say, no, we're okay with that. We go at large for the mayor position. Then now we're ignoring that the purpose of the California Rights Act, the premise behind it, and then secondly, we're increasing the population. I think by me, I believe that going to map 501, it gives us a larger pool of people to run. It gives the individual representative responsibility for them to act on what their people have in their district. I had an opportunity to talk to those at the hot summer nights, or people in town. I've been here for years. My neighbors, my friends, and each one of them come up with 5 districts. So with that said, I would like to see us moving forward with map 501. Thank you.
Through the chair.
Okay, hold on.
I just wanted to comment.
Yeah, so I want to clarify something as well.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify just on your comments, Mayor Pro Tem, and I just want to make sure for the public, there's accurate data that's provided by us up here as well. So not all members of this body were elected by the public. Councilwoman Corralejo was not elected by the public. She was elected by 3 members of this council. So I just want to make sure that the public understands, and that's the correction that's noted. Councilmember
Yes, and I want to make it, I want to make this comment because I don't think it's fair that we bring, Lula into this. Because this is the decision that we have to make. This is a decision that several cities have to make. I requested a letter from our, city attorney to see where the supposed, threat was, and I didn't see any. How? You didn't see Lula making any threats or going to court. No, the letter, I read the letter. It doesn't have any threat. He said, you guys go in district, or we're gonna be forced into doing this. But it was never a real threat. They didn't proceed anymore. So bringing Lula into this conversation is not just, doesn't sound. So I would like to hear from those of you who have 5 districts. Look, there's people here, there's people online that participated. If you have people emailing you and making comments to you, why don't they show up? We have the right to see them. We have the right to hear, they have the right to hear, for us to hear them. They're not here. That is my concern, that I'm not saying that you're lying, I'm not saying anything, so you don't think anything of that sort, but I'm saying, if those guys wanted to support the 5 district, how come they're not here? How come they don't put a public notice? It was so easy to send them a public comment. How come they're not doing it? My concern is that only 3 people want that portion, and if it is like that, I'm okay. That's what you want, and so then let's provide accurate information. Let's say this is the reason, this is how we're gonna benefit, not just saying, oh, I think that is, because that is not enough for a whole town. The whole town needs a valid reason why we want this or why we want that. We are stating that 4 districts will give us the opportunity to get closer to our communities and have the city, if the city hold the opportunity to elect the mayor. That is what we're saying. What are your reasons so that we can hear them? Because you cannot say, oh, it's because it represents more. How could you represent more with less people voting? I mean, I don't understand that. I don't understand how could you have better representation with the smaller districts when only a few people will be voting in that sense. I just really want to listen to your reasons. Why? Not just because 1 or 2 words, but a valid reason why. Because I don't want to vote for the mayor. I want the city to vote for the mayor. What is your reason behind voting for the mayor?
Councilmember Cabrera, thank you for those comments in terms of, the clarification. And just for members of the public, we're not in public comments anymore. I do see a hand went up, but at this time now we are done with the public comment portion of it. So we're not opening up the public comment anymore for members of the public. Unfortunately, we went through that process. Part of our deliberation and governance of this body is to be able to open up the public comment, be fair to everyone that was here that made public comments, and not reopen that. So it won't be reopened for those that are in Zoom with their hand raised. Just want to clarify that.
Can the chair,
So let me-
to the comment that you made
So
for my comments?
can you hold on, because I need to make my comments and then I will hear the rest of the comments. So I want to make sure that we hold on, I'm speaking, so I just really want to make sure that we are moving in a process that's equitable and that we all have, excuse me, council member, you're out of order. You're out of order. You're out of order. I will finish my deliberation and then you can make your comments. But I will say to the members of this public, and I know we had said at the beginning, I wanted to make sure that this was a respectful conversation, understanding that we all come with our differences. We all believe in what we're saying and we all believe that to be true. But I think what we have to make sure that we're focusing on is we can question, obviously, that's part of the deliberation, because that is part of our discussion, and we can make comments to be able to support what we believe. But at some point, we have to get back to what's in the best interest of the people, and why are these maps that we're selecting the best choices for representation of our community. So let me just go ahead and make my comments, because I haven't had the opportunity to do so, and then we will continue with the discussion. So first of all, I want to thank also all the members of the public that are here with us today, those that are joining us via Zoom, those that have participated in the ongoing discussions of the redistricting process. This started in 2021 or 2022, when we started having these discussions about how we were going to move forward. Whether LULAC presented this to us or not, it was here. We had to determine as a council how we wanted to move forward with that engagement, with the potential of being sued. Most of the cities that we know, there's only a few cities, a few handful of cities left that are at law, that don't have districting elections. Most of them do. There's some cities that are fighting this, and some cities that are spending a lot of money still in court to do so. We chose not to do that. We don't have that kind of money, first of all. And the benefit is we want to make sure that the public receives the benefit of the funding that we do have to be able to better serve our public. So we are where we're at now. And this process, I want to thank also our consultant for really noting that we are one of the few cities that try to go out there and really engage our voters. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of disengaged voters. And I think the last couple of years, we really tried as a council to make sure that we have opportunities for people to engage. So we have Spanish translations to eliminate some of those barriers, because we really want more representation. We really want our voters to be the ones that have the say on who they elect as their council members that are here. So I also want to thank the advisory committee, because I know they had a lot of lengthy discussions in terms of what's the best process, what are the best maps, what are those maps that are going to provide our residents and our voter population with the best representation from the council members. So I want to just begin by saying that, because I know that it took a lot of time, and I really want to make sure I acknowledge all the work that was done. I also want to make sure that I acknowledge that in this process, in terms of the Voter Rights Act of 1965, there is data, and people can read it, find it, Google it, whatever you want to do. But research does show that moving to a district-based election does create more successful voter turnout and voter registration. And so it is my hope that as we engage in this conversation, that we're here already, and that we look at it and what is the best way to be able to engage more of our voters. It was said that we have, unfortunately, very low voter turnout. So we want to make sure that we continue to look at ways that we can really encourage others to vote and others to participate and be here as part of this council. But for me, the decision to vote on the redistricting process, again, like many was said, it's really highly important. It's really going to change the whole system of how we vote and how our members and our public are represented. And I really, I'm going to say that I deferred from really doing more outreach, and I could have, because that's where I come from, because I know engagement is critical at all levels. But I didn't want it to be perceived that I was influencing people to come and speak on my behalf. I'm the current mayor here, and I acknowledge that, but I'm not going to be mayor forever, nor do I want to be mayor forever. So in my lens is looking at what's in the best interest of the people. And this process should be a reflection of that. We know that it's important to be able to abide by the laws concerning this process. And the intent for me is, how do we really ensure that there's voters have the right to choose and the representatives who they deem can better represent them as part of the council. And I'm deeply concerned that we are now considering the elimination of the mayor elected position that the voters voted to approve in 2003 via Measure C, which was passed, as was said, 90% approval. And although we're being told that the council has the authority to overturn the will of the people, my question to them and to the public is, why should this be done? What is the purpose what evidence, I'm about evidence and data. Show me the evidence and the data that exists to show that this is in the best interest of the people. Because if I'm reading from data that I was able to get, what are the benefits of going to this election process? That it benefits and it helps to be able to register more people to vote and to have better engagement. So for me, it's show me the data and show me what is the benefit of doing that. And I'm also concerned that this is not the democratic process that I want to be engaged in, or that I feel our members of our public come here to be able to be part of a process that there is a democracy where their voice is heard. And so for me is, I'm not convinced that this is the democratic process that I want to pursue, and that it's part of the decision for me of going to a 5-district map that takes away the right of the voters to be able to elect their own mayor that they deem fit to be here and to represent them. And is there division here? Yes, there is. So it was mentioned by Councilwoman Corralejo that there is division and we want to acknowledge it. But part of the division that exists as well is because I run against a mayor that had been here for a long time, and I want to make sure that I acknowledge this. And I've come to a council that was not supportive of me. And I had to look at what the voters voted, despite this council not having the support. The voters voted overwhelmingly to elect me as a mayor twice. And so for me, that opportunity, I don't want to take away from someone else that is up here and wants to run for mayor, that they have that choice to be able to run for mayor and be elected by the people and represent the people. And that's really critical. And again, if this council wishes to overturn the voters' choice, then I ask that the public have that input and that they go out to the voters. They go out to the voters for the voters to elect whether they want to change it. And so even if it's legal that the council can do it, my question is, why should we? Show me the data that shows differently to move toward that decision of a 6-district map. And I'm not clear in terms of several members of this legislative body, why we're trying to change that. In 2003, when the voters approved it, Council Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez had the opportunity to run for mayor. And so forth, many others have, and we've seen since that happened, there's been many opportunities to be able to have the people elect the representative that they want to see here as part of their mayor, and to work together. Just because we have disagreements doesn't mean that we're not an effective body. We all come with different value sets, and we all come with what we think is best for the city and with different skill sets. But at the end, we all have to be working together to be able to look at what's in the best interest of the city. Somebody talked about housing. That's a big priority. And I think this council body has been able to look at what are the different mechanisms that we can move forward with in terms of housing. Economic development was another one. And we all had different ways of how we were gonna approach that. But collectively, it was looking at those things that matter to the public, not things that matter to me, not things that matter to each of the council members. We're not here for special or self-interest. We're here to make sure that the voice of the people is represented in the decisions that we make. And so for me, again, it may be legal, but is it the right thing to do? And is it in the best interest of the people? And I'm not convinced that going to a five district map is the right thing to do. And that's going to provide it or enhance the opportunity for people to have more representation. And for me, I'm focused on the maps that are before us, which is what we have to look at. Are they fair? Are they equitable? And are they transparent? And do they coincide and are they conform with the federal and the state voting rights act? And so just in closing, for me, I want to say that it is our duty to ensure that this process is focused on what's in the best interest of our residents and not on any special or self-interest. And again, the question before us is not on how to undo the will of the people, but considering adoption of 5-district map. This question has already been answered by the voters. And if the majority of the council is convinced for whatever reason that going to a 5-district map with an appointed mayor is in the best interest of the people, then I want to see the data. That the voters decide if they want to undo their decision to elect a mayor. And so for me, the recommendation is to move forward with a unanimous recommendation of the advisory committee for the TAN map and map 401 for consideration. And again, the smaller districts, and we heard it again, they don't create opportunity for more voter engagement. The data doesn't show that. The data shows otherwise. So those are my comments. So Council Mayor Pro Tem, if you want to move forward with your comments, you can go ahead and do so now.
I'm good.
Okay. Councilmember Chavez?
Yeah, through the chair. I think that, we're talking about data and what data we have before us, but I don't think there's data on either side. I think when we talk about four or five, we're still talking about districts. So we're going from an at-large election system where we vote for everybody. And we do have a decent voter turnout overall when we look at cities similar to ours, but nothing great, but not horrible. And I think we're going from that to either 4 or 5. I don't think there's data that 4 would be any better than 5 or 5 would be any better than 4. I don't think that data exists, and I don't see that data being presented to me either, as far as that if we had 4, it'd be better. So I'm not convinced of the data because I don't have any data in front of me of saying that a district for having 4 districts is going to be better. In regards to the position of mayor, the mayor is a title. Here on this dais, each one of us has 1 vote on every item that's brought before us. In regards to the mayor, they set the agenda for the meeting. They also get to be the spokesperson for the council as they follow the council's direction, whatever the council's direction may be. If it's a 3-2 vote, if it's a 4-1 vote, if it's a 5-0 vote, the mayor is the spokesperson for that majority. And so I understand the confusion. I understand the need for folks to think that there's something hugely special about being a mayor. But every single person on this council, minus Maria, because she did get appointed, were elected by the entire city. Be it in first place, second place, third place, depending on every single election that has happened over the years. And so for me, again, due to that, if it was up to me, just like I stated in 2022, why don't we put this out to the voter to see if we want to district? That was my comment. Those were my comments. Let's go out to the voters and have the voters say, yes, we want to go district. We want to do these districts. That was not entertained. That did not move forward. So we're here now doing this without having gone out to the voters to say, yes, we want to district. Yes, we want to divide our city. We didn't go out to the voters for that. This was a decision made by this body. That's what we're doing tonight. We're making that decision again. But this time, it's going to be going from every single person that's up here that can be elected at large to be elected by a smaller group. So when we talk about data for 4 districts or data for 5 districts, there is no data before us. All we have is information that was reiterated from the Voting Rights Act, which has changed tremendously when they took out Section 2 and Section 5 that no longer are being utilized because both of them were shut down by the federal courts. So we can't even utilize Section 5 and Section 2 that we used to utilize with issues of redistricting. When we talk about being unrepresented, those are gone. They were shut down by the courts.
Through the chair. I have 2 things. I'm gonna start with the last one. I still don't hear any
any reasons why we should change the mayor at large. And if you want some data, I can tell you this. If we go into 5 district data, and excuse me for using this, I apologize for that, but it's the best way that I can have our public to visualize this. With all due respect, Councilman Corrales was appointed by you guys. Yeah, by 3 council members. So if this goes on, it is a possibility that Councilmember Corrales will be appointed mayor, something that she did not earn. Through the people, through the will of the people. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want us appointing somebody and then saying that in 5 minutes, you visualize everything and all the qualities that one person had. It is a strict way to get to a point, not through appointing somebody just to the easiest way. This is a city that needs representation, true representation. Not appointed by me or by you, by anybody of us. It's by electing from the people. The people should be electing that. And I just, when you say that you wanted that to be sent to elections, I think it's a good idea. It was a good idea. You had all the full support of the 4 members. How come they didn't go? You're not gonna say that it's because the mayor didn't want to, because you have full support of the council by then.
It was,
So maybe the council did not see what you see. And I think it's time for the city to be able to do their will and not our will.
through the chair, there was a legal threat that was happening at the time. In fact,
It wasn't a legal.
Okay, so Councilmember Cabrera, can you
Don't-
stop?
please don't bring it.
Councilmember Cabrera, I'm gonna have to call you out of
Yes.
order as well, so we wanna make sure that we're respectful, whether we agree or disagree, that we're allowing each other to make our comments fully before we interrupt.
So according to our attorney that represents the city of Soledad, we were under legal threat, and that was the decision that was made at the time. Be it, was it a good decision, a bad decision? That was the decision that was made by the city council due to the legal threat that was brought before us through the legal guidance of our attorney. You may disagree with me, you may disagree with the attorney, but that's what was brought before us at the time, and that's the decision that was made for it.
Thank you. So let me just go ahead and make some comments in terms of the data and what the data shows, and that we don't have data either on either side. Yes, we do. We have data that shows that when you divide the districts, especially on the 5 districts with lesser population, that you don't have that full representation, and that there's an opportunity for less people to participate and to run for office. And we know that through part of this redistricting process, data does show in terms of moving forward that the majority of the cities have moved forward into a district-based election, and the most of the cities still retain their elected mayor position. There's only a handful of cities within our tri-county area that operate in that process. So if this process has been undertaken by many cities have studied this, many cities have requested the same data, many cities have made, decisions, and most of the cities have gone to, whether it was a threat or not, to be able to go through the district elections and allow the mayor in their position to be elected. There's only, like I said, a handful of cities that show that they have a rotating mayor, and there's not that very many. And it goes again also with the school districts that are moving forward. We didn't see that with our school district that decided to do an elected president, that decided to undo that and to being a rotating president. So there is data. I want to make sure that the public understands that there is data that shows that there is a preference for continuing, whether we like it or not, that there's a districting, that we do the districting, and most of the cities have retained their elected mayor. And I want to make sure the conversation isn't about who the present mayor is now, because this is not going to affect me. It didn't affect the prior mayors. We never had discussions about it when in 2016, 2014, 2020 and all of these years when we had an election and it wasn't a problem. I think as Councilmember Chavez said, we're now entertaining this as part of the conversation because, you know, we are here now, district elections. We're part of the conversation with the district elections for me. And I just feel as part of the democratic process that it's all of our duties to be able to ensure that we're pursuing the most, the choice with the opportunities that provide our residents to be represented by the people that they elect. And for me, that is based on you continue to have the 4 districts and have the mayor at large as it has been. The mayor has to go out there and gain the support of the public. The mayor has to be able to understand what the issues are in relevancy to its constituency and not just one district, but represent the entire district, the entire community. And I think that's really critical in order for our residents to continue to have a democratic process where the people still have the voice and the vote to elect each of their members of the council body that's up here before you. And for me, I'm not convinced that going to a 5 district is going to allow our residents to be able to have that choice when that choice that they voted for in 2003 is now being discussed to be able to take away that right of the people to choose their representatives. Everybody else in that 5 district process is going to be elected and not the mayor. So for me, I question the democratic process of that, of not having the people elect each of their representatives. And so I'm not convinced. And for me, it's the people need to be represented by who they want to represent them, and they need to vote for those individuals that are up here. And we need to be able to respect that, whether we like the mayor or not. And the mayor, as Councilmember Chavez said, it's a title. It's a title. The mayor is only a title because we all do have 1 vote each. But it's a title given by the people that the people have to vote for. It's not a title given by individual council members that sit on this dais, and whether it's this diet, whether it's this council or prior councils or future councils, our public and Soledad residents deserve the right to have the voice heard and to have them be the ones that elect all of the representatives that are here.
Through the chair. Yeah, I do not disagree with you on that portion of it. Is the people have a right to elect all their members, not just their district, all their members. So therefore, by us saying, no, we're gonna go ahead, move to districts and only allow the mayor's position to be at large, then we're now contradicting ourselves because of the fact that 2003 is not now. When it was changed in 2003, so now, regardless who that sits in that chair, that has changed and the voting representation has changed. I sat in a meeting with LULAC. Councilmember Chavez sat in a meeting with LULAC, and some of the concerns with LULAC, the reason we brought forward was because people were not given an opportunity, same families were getting on the council. People couldn't raise money to run for council. They couldn't afford it. So they don't get a fair opportunity. Somebody from 8th Street can't run against somebody from, let's say, Valley View Drive, because they don't have the same amount of money. So whatever that is, so they felt that it would be fair. And part of the California Voters' Rights Act in 2001 is to give those individuals an opportunity for representation. Well, I can share with you that, you know, these council seats are not cheap to run for. I mean, in some cases, you run for a mayor's position, it can get up to approximately $20,000. How many of those members in our community can go out there and raise money, and let's go into special interest groups to try to raise monies? And I'm not saying groups that are interested in moving their agendas along. So so we're saying 2 things are coming out. Allow with, you know, the people right to representation, but don't only by their districts, because then they have better involvement. But we want everybody to elect the mayor. And it's just 1 vote. They determine, mayor determines the agenda. They sit down with the city manager. They prioritize the agenda. So what may be a priority for
let's say now we're in districts, my district, and now I'm the rotating mayor, I'll have an opportunity to move myself a little bit up that ladder, as long as it's not critical, obviously, we all agree on that. So, you know, the housing, all that, housing, police, fire, all the critical issues, public works will always be in the forefront in our mind. But in addition to moving economic development forward, then we can move our own areas as well, considering everybody else's districts. So they get that opportunity to do that, to move those items on the agenda. In this situation with the district, 4 districts, 1 mayor, you're not gonna have that ability to do that. Because unfortunately, with some of the items that are on there that you request don't show up or they're not there, you gotta continue to request them. And I don't say it's the fault of our current mayor, it's just there's so many items to have to do. So that's all I have, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. But so I want to make sure that I clarify and that we provide accurate data to our residents. So under the agenda process portion that you talked about, that the mayor has more of the opportunity to set the agenda. For the record, under our city council rules and policies and procedures, that is not how our governance structure operates currently. So under that, each council member gets to present an agenda item and it gets to come to the council. And I think we've been operating on that. I don't have, as part of our policies in our current outdated city council rules, policies and procedures, the right to be able to say, sorry, council member, Mayor Pro Tem, you don't have the right, or your agenda item isn't equally as important, so it's not going to be on this council agenda. That is not accurate, and that is not the way our policies are currently written. So I just want to make sure our public has accurate information on that, because that is not true.
Through the chair. So I guess as everybody knows, I'm the only one up here that was not elected. And you know, part of that was we had a city council person who unfortunately due to family circumstances had to leave mid-term. So when I saw that coming up on the city's website, I went ahead and applied along with, I believe, about maybe 10, that's like an average, I think, about 10 other individuals who were interested and also applied. And I think out of that, maybe 8 or 7 of us actually showed up, which I think was a huge number. And we did the interviews, went through the process. So with that said, I did take offense to something that was said today. I actually felt insulted, and believe it or not, it wasn't about me being appointed at all. I actually, you know, did not take offense to that at all. Our city council back then decided to not hold an election as it would cost, if I believe it was between 20 to 30,000, I think is what I heard on that meeting. But what I took offense to was into saying that, you know, I guess those people that did not show up to our workshops for the districting, that did not do maps, that did not attend any meetings, any hearing, those that we did not hear from at all, kind of, you know, throwing them under the bus that they're not here. I think whether you were appointed or elected, you know, or whichever way it is, we're all here, we're representing everyone that's sitting up here right now, all of our city of Soledad and our wonderful residents. And I think it's real important for us to know that we represent everyone. That includes, you know, maybe, you know, young people that don't vote, or maybe elderly people that don't know how to go on social media, or it's too cold or they're too sick to come out there. We represent Jehovah's Witnesses that don't even vote and probably don't even want to hear any of this. We represent people that maybe have social anxiety that never come out of their house ever, but the decisions that we make here, because that's why we're up here, we, you know, are up here to make decisions and choices, and sometimes tough ones, like it is today. That's, you know, that's what I think about the reason that I'm personally up here. And so that's what I took insult to today is, you know, I really feel that we represent everybody in our city. And so that's You know, just what I wanted to say, and then one more thing, just to show to what extent, we have a lot of people that only speak Spanish that I noticed on my first meeting here that were coming, and I noticed that they were engaged on Facebook, they were coming to different city meetings that we would have even prior to me being appointed to sit here. So my second meeting that I came to, because the first one was a little bit chaotic, one of the first things that I said was, I want to have translations. Can we have Spanish translations for them? And I believe that was an October 2022 meeting, if I remember correctly. So just wanted to say that we're up here to represent everything, not just the selected group or not just the group, you know, that is fortunate enough to have a job or have a house, you know, situation that allows them to come and be active, although we do appreciate everyone that is. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Correjo. Councilmember Chavez?
Yeah, so I know that we're looking at doing a recommendation, so it was brought forth by Councilmember Cabrera that we should be making a decision on a 5-district or 4-district, and then have the piece to the map. So for myself, I'd like to go ahead and move that recommendation to have 5 districts, and that we move that forward, and then we talk about what map for those 5 districts.
Through the chair.
Thank you, yes, thank you, Councilmember Chavez. Councilmember Cabrera.
I would like to hear any real valid reason before we move into that, and why do you want to remove the mayor at large? Because you haven't provided any real valid reason. Just all I hear is because I want to. That's what I hear from you. So if you can please provide any reason so that I understand why, and the public understand why, because they're probably thinking the same thing, that you just want to do it because you want to, and because you have that power of 2 more votes.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. You know, we're going from an at-large election process, and we're going to go to a districting process. So we're going from every single city council member that would get elected at large to a mayor that gets voted at large. So for me, and the way I represent this, interpret this, look at this, is that if we're going from an at-large system, listening to folks, listening to what's before us, looking at the information that's before us, then it makes sense to go to 5 districts. That's how I see it. That's how I understand it. It isn't about me. It's about what is fair and equitable when we talk about going from at-large of every single council member having the possibility of being voted in by the entire city. Then it should be the same when we're looking at these maps. That's the reason.
You just went around.
Okay, so Councilmember Cabrera, so he provided, so we're gonna stop the discussion in terms of, we want to make sure that we're able to articulate why we feel this is the best manner to move forward with. And so I'd like the council to be able to do that in a respectful manner, to be able to articulate why they feel. We don't have to agree because we obviously don't, but to be able to have that choice. So for me, I just want to make some, my recommendation, and because we're making recommendations tonight, we're not making motions, is that my recommendation is to move forward with the maps, the 4 district maps that were recommended by the advisory committee on a unanimous vote. So for me, it's really important to be able to take into consideration the committee that took the time to study the maps, to put together the maps, to talk to our residents about what was in the best interest. And obviously for me, the choice that they made that was unanimous was that of the putting forward the 10 map and the map 401 for consideration. So that's what I recommend for us to move forward with. And in terms of comments of just making sure that we have the best possible outcome for people to be able to run within the districts. We still have a lot of work to do. And I think this council, we need to be vigilant about that, because we are, as was said multiple times, transitioning from an at-large to a district base. We still get to go out to the voters. The voters still get to elect who they want to see in those specific districts. It'll provide the voters with an opportunity, as was said, because many times people may not run because they don't have the financial means. That they have an opportunity now to have those districts that they're able to now focus on their area, their neighborhoods, to be able to do outreach, to be able to talk to their neighbors, to be able to gain support and be able to have greater engagement from more people, I'm hoping, that really run for office in those districts. And we have had a history, as was said before, of families historically the ones that are sitting up here in this council. And also in our school board. And it's been the same families that have the means. And we don't have a lot of residents that don't have the means, that may not have the financial means to come here, may not have those different opportunities that those families had. So I think this is an opportunity to be able to still maintain, still move forward with a process that is going to provide our residents with a greater opportunity to be the decision makers, with a greater opportunity to run for office, with a greater opportunity to be able to have a voice as part of this council, and with a greater opportunity to really represent those individuals within their communities and be able to address some of those issues that sometimes may be overlooked in the big scheme of some of the things that we do, with the option that they still have, that the mayor is still accountable to the people, that the mayor is still elected by the people, and the mayor is still elected to be able to represent the people, and that the people still have the right to hold their mayor accountable for what they do and what they don't do.
Yes, through the chair, since we're giving our recommendations, for me, it's gonna be the 5-district map, and some of the reasons are again due to the for equitable purposes. I do feel that without going to the 5 districts, it would just be going up to a certain point, not taking it all the way. And a big part of that is just, like we were just talking about the I guess the usual suspects kind of thing when it comes to who was serving before on our council. I think a lot of it is not just the financial means, but I think political ties and political influence. And I think those that are either watch meetings regularly or are keep up to date with municipal or just politics in general do know that political ties and influence goes a long way. So I do feel that it would be the best thing, equitable wise, the 5 districts.
Okay, so we have recommendations that are for 5 and for 4. So how do we move this forward? So in order for us to come back or to be able to decide in September, since there is no consensus in terms of moving through the 5 or the 4. And so I just want to make sure that I don't continue. Obviously, we know with the deliberation that we've had as a council, we know where we stand. And we know that some of us, like myself, I'm not in agreement or in consideration, even, to be able to move with the 5 district map, because it does not provide equitable and fair representation of the people. And so can you give me some guidance in terms of how you want us to proceed?
Well, through the chair, if I could defer, if we could defer to the city manager, one of the things is for myself anyway, is that do we have a consensus on the recommendation? That's what we need.
So that wasn't,
Oh, yeah, and the one thing you've talked quite a bit about 4 versus 5, but I do think that it's kind of hard to push forward multiple recommendations, because even with the maps themselves, there's some sequencing of elections that need to be looked at. And so I think, I think we need to nail down a little bit more certainty on how to move forward.
Yeah, and I know that you're already out of your 90-day safe harbor protections from lawsuit. So at any time, anyone, it doesn't have to be LULAC, could bring a suit against you under the CVRA. And all I want to say is you have maps to choose from right now, but if you do end up in court, you may no longer have the choice over what the districts look like. They could be imposed on you by a judge. So take this opportunity and utilize it to determine where you want your district boundaries. You know, every additional time that we push this out just puts you at risk of losing that decision-making power.
Okay, so I think in terms of then what you just mentioned, and we're already out of that 90-day harbor. And I haven't heard from our city attorney, so I really need some guidance as well. And I know Mike, you're probably not feeling as well, but I know that you've been hearing the deliberation and discussion in regards to this. And so I just want to make sure as we move forward, we have to achieve some kind of consensus. The recommendation based on the council report was to recommend to move forward a map. It didn't say we need to achieve consensus on it. I know obviously that we should, but I just want to be clear that that's not what the recommendation or the council report mentioned. It's recommend the maps to be able to move forward with.
Yes, and you know, I should not have used the word consensus. We're looking for a majority supporting it because we will be introducing an ordinance that will be voted on and will require a majority of council votes to pass.
Would it be possible to recommend two maps, and from that, the next meeting that we have to work in the details, kind of mix from both of them?
I think it's not ideal, but
Yeah.
you can do whatever, you know, you can do whatever you want.
Through the chair, I think we said at the beginning, we were asking the questions of, as far as, you know, how we were going to proceed. And I think Councilmember Cabrera brought up the question of having 5 districts or having 4 districts, and we should do the recommendation on that. So based on that, I mean, I think we got the majority here who are saying that we're moving forward with 5 districts. So I think we're looking at that recommendation as a majority. And then from there, looking at what map we'd like to consider to tweak and to fix and to make changes to. And so I think, at least from my recommendation, I'd like to go for 501 and move forward in that direction.
And through the chair, if that happens, I would like to submit a motion that would change and keep the mayor at large. Even if we go by district, we still need the mayor to be at large.
Okay, so just to clarify legally in the government code of the state of California, you cannot have 5 districts plus an elective mayor. So you can have 5, 7, or 9 districts with a rotating mayor, or you can have 4, 6, or 8 districts with an elected mayor. So that's an important thing to clarify because you are a general law city, you are not a charter city.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that.
And Mayor, I know you asked, and we can ask if Mike is able to speak if he feels comfortable. He is on the line. So I don't know.
He's here, but he's muted. So
Okay.
So, yeah, so Megan, well, Mike hopefully is able to give us a little bit more guidance. And I want to go back to the conversation and the recommendation. Obviously, we have to move forward with something. But it doesn't say that it has to be the majority. And I want to make that clear because I know before we had many decisions in terms of it has to be the majority, and that's in our policies. This is not this is not the policy. And the discussion today is not based on the policy that we have to have a majority. So with that, I recommend moving forward, the 10 map and map 401 for consideration, as that was unanimously recommended by the advisory committee. And based on the council, based on the comments that we received today, and based on the comments that I received as well, from members of our council is, I want the 4 districts because that provides opportunity for our public to continue to elect their representatives and including having their mayor at large. So I want to make sure that we understand how we're going to move forward with this. So it's not based on a majority, because we obviously have 3 members of this council that make up the majority in terms of how they want to move forward with a 5-district map. And so I want to be clear that that is not the requirement before us today, and that we can move both of these forward to be able to consider this under public comment for the September meeting, and that it's not based on 3 members of this council.
I think through the chair, one of the guidelines that we received was to provide council direction for staff to do preparation of the ordinance for future meeting for, because all this time is continually to be exposed to litigation. And the longer we prolong it, you know, the more exposure we have. We've done that with the other committees that we had as well. So my recommendation to the chair is that we go with map 501. So we can start preparing the ordinance.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And so I'll modify my recommendation is to go with map 401. And so I do see that Mike is now has his hand up. So Mike, if you can unmute.
Yeah. Council, first, I am sorry that I couldn't be there tonight for this important discussion that you're having, but I have been watching, of course, the whole meeting. So, I mean, a recommendation is usually based on a majority, right? I mean, we wouldn't move forward on a recommendation made by a single person. So that seems to me that that if the idea was that we would make a recommendation that that's what we need to do tonight, and it would be by the majority vote. That being said, it seems like there have been any number of issues that have been raised this evening that make moving forward with recommendation difficult. There's been a number of references to data and material and so forth that is not before the entire city council. I mean, it seems as if some of that information is only possessed by a single individual or individuals and so forth. And so my recommendation, I mean, I'm really only one in this case, would be that it seems like we're gonna have a difficult time making a recommendation this evening. It wasn't absolutely imperative that you make a decision tonight in terms of the guidance that you wanted to provide to NDS and to myself, because I'll be preparing the ordinance. And so one of the things you could do is to at least maybe whittle down. It seems like there's definitely folks that want 5 and there's definitely folks that want 4. If you could whittle down which of those 2 maps that were brought forward or recommended by the advisory community board to 1 4 map and 1 5 map, so then we could at least be prepared to have something before you for you to take action at the next meeting. And then at the next meeting, you can have further discussion about the merits of the 4 and the merits of the 5, and then make your decision and have an actual vote.
Thank you, Mike, for that guidance. So I think from council, and just want to make sure that I'm accurately reflecting the comments that were made today. So then with that, we can move to, if we can whittle it down to 2 maps, then we whittle it down to map 401 and map 510, which are the 2 maps that 501?
501.
Oh, sorry.
I think it's important if Kristen can just go over, because those 2 maps create some sequencing differences. So there might be some consideration in looking at those 2 maps, and I don't know if that was clear. We didn't talk too much about that in the presentation, if that's okay, Mayor.
Yes.
Okay, so just to clarify, let's start with map 401, and I'm sorry, I don't have it projected, but map 401 paired Councilmember Coralejo and Jimenez in District 4, and pairs Councilmember Cabrera and Councilmember Chavez in District 1. The good news about that is that it's pairing members who have the same election years. So the only decision you would have to make with map 401 is which of the vacant districts should be assigned to which election year. So that's not as difficult of a decision. as you would be faced with map 501. So with map 501, the pairing that you have in District 2 between Councilmember Cabrera and Mayor Velasquez is the one where you would have to decide where you are going to, which election you're going to assign to District 2. Are you going to assign the council member's election year or the mayor's election year? And what that means is, of course, both the council member and the mayor would complete their terms, but whether or not they could run for that District 2 seat would be, one of them would have to wait for 2 years before being able to run again for that seat. So that is the difficult consideration that would have to be made with map 501. And are there any questions on that?
Yes. Would it be possible to know the address of those who were in the advisory committee? To see if any of those addresses come within the district that would be with no representative?
That is not something I have seen happen before,
Mhm.
so I would have to defer to city staff on that.
Okay.
I will say, very frequently, members of the public and or an advisory committee who are planning someday to run do draw maps that
Yeah,
may benefit them.
that
That happens everywhere.
That is precisely my
That happens
concern
everywhere.
with somebody that was not elected in the previous years. Set up the district so he or she could run with the support of the friends and family.
So I have a question in terms of, you obviously went through all these maps with us, and this is not an ideal map. So obviously it has different issues that you mentioned already in terms of some of the sequencing, but also some of what we already saw in terms of smaller population size and just some of the issues that come with the representation under that. So what's the recommendation? I would like to hear from you. Also in terms of the other maps that provide us with, I know you had mentioned that in terms of the deviation, all of them are under that 8%, but what other maps provide a better opportunity for the deviation plus meet all of the criteria in a more enhanced way than 501, than map 501?
So of all 7 or of the 4?
Of the 5
4
districts.
recommended?
Mhm.
Oh, the 5 district, so, recommended by the committee were 501 that has a total deviation of 6.62%. And the Apple map, which has a total deviation of 6.91%. That's really quite comparable. As well as the only other 5 district map is Mango with a 6.36% total deviation. So it seems like when you're drawing 5 districts, you're pretty much gonna land around 6 to 7% deviation here. I imagine if lower were possible, someone would have drawn it.
Okay, so from the maps for the 6th district, for the 5 districts, sorry, for the 5 district, the 6.36% Mango map is the one that has the least deviation of the others.
That's correct.
And through the chair, those are all under 10%, right?
Correct.
They're all under 10%, but just to comment on the decision based on the preferred as based on the criteria that we have before us. So it's based on data. It's not based on assumptions, but it's based on data that even though they're all under that 10%, which is a preferred deviation, there is Mango map that gives us the least deviation in terms of the population base, which is 6.36%.
Yes, so after you've considered all of the state criteria and particularly divisions of neighborhoods and communities, then you could consider among the legally compliant total deviation, which is low. But that would be after you consider the other criteria.
And I think the same thing could be said for when we look at the four maps. If you look at 10 in comparison to 401, the deviation is quite hugely a big difference, almost 2%. When you look at that one, I mean.
Yeah,
so
so
I mean,
TAN, just to put it in the record, TAN is a total deviation of 4.73%. And 401 has a total deviation of 6.83%.
And then the other difference is that it's very noticeable, at least from when I look at it, that the larger streets, for the most part, on the TAN map, well, you know, the districts follow the large streets, yet in the 401, it's very particular that it goes around certain neighborhoods, certain small streets. So it looks like it was carved out. That one specifically looks, it's the only map that we have here that looks carved out of all the maps that are there. The 7 maps, it's the only one that looks carved out.
Yeah, so can I, yeah, sorry, I have a question. So what does that mean carved out? So because all of these, I mean, there's nothing that's carved out specifically, but all of them are carved out. So I'm not understanding what this one.
Yes,
has more
so-
carved out.
We don't, if we can avoid it, we don't want to see boundaries that are jagged because they're not easily identifiable to residents. We do want to try to follow the more major roads. However, sometimes we are limited by the census geography, which, as we talked about with Terraza Street, creates some really strange shapes. So some of that may be, you know, you can see from map to map that we can avoid some of those jagged edges, but not necessarily all of them. So that would be an area where council may direct the demographer to go back to the map and see, can you clean up these boundaries at all without sacrificing the deviation and the substance of the map? So sometimes we can smooth those out. Other times it would throw the population out to balance.
Through the chair, I had a quick question for you. I know at the beginning of your presentation, when you were referring and describing map 401, you did say that it had a lot of jagged lines and also that it was not very compact. Can you describe, I guess, or clarify what you meant by not very compact? Sounded like it was a concern maybe?
Yes, and so keeping in mind that that is the lowest of importance on the list of 4 criteria, but particularly looking at, to me, districts 4 and 2 don't look particularly compact here. And the way that compactness is defined by the Fair Maps Act is a compact map doesn't avoid a nearby area to take in a farther away area. So anytime you see, you know,
Like you don't want to bypass.
bypassing,
Mhm.
yeah. And so you end up with kind of often strange shapes or long stretched out things that pull around. It can be hard to describe verbally, but I would want to know maybe why some of those decisions were made with that particular District 2 and 4 here, and if there was any community of interest reasoning for that, right? Is there a reason to pull District 4 all the way south of the railroad tracks and all the way down along El Camino, or the freeway rather? Is there a reason for that, or is that, you know, just for population and because it makes that district non-compact, if that makes sense?
It does, thank you.
Thank you.
One quick question. So, following up with the Councilmember Chavez said about tank map, what is the difference between the deviation of that map and 501? And
So, yeah, the TAN map is 4.73% total deviation, and 501 has a 6.62% total deviation.
so if we were to make a recommendation from data, we will say that tank has the best deviation of all of them,
Of the 4, yes, that is correct.
and compared with the 505 districts. will Tang have better deviation than any of the four, five district map?
Yes, that's correct.
So I would recommend that we go with Tang for district because it has a better deviation than any of the others.
So I would modify my recommendation based on additional criteria provided. In terms of some of the, not the lowest importance criteria provided, but more of the important what we need to be looking at in terms of just the integrity, the lines and the way they're drawn out, I'm sorry, and the compactness, but also in terms of the least deviation. I think it's important to be able to look at the least deviation numbers as well to make sure that there's adequate representation, a fair and equitable representation. So I can modify my recommendation to be able to move with the 10 map for the 4 districts. Okay, so I think, Megan, I think we have hashed this out quite extensively. And so there's 2 recommendations, and I in terms of the 501 map, it doesn't seem like it's the most equitable based on the information that was presented to us. That there's other maps, if this council members of the council choose to move forward with it, it's not the most ideal map. Given the conversation you provided us with. And so I would encourage the council to really look at the map that provides the best opportunity for there to be proper representation, as we do have to make a final recommendation. I would hope that we're doing that based on not self-interest or special interest, but it's really based on what gives the people of Soledad the best opportunity to be able to have compliance with the California and the Federal Voting Rights Act. Plus, it gives those critical elements that we need to be looking at a better opportunity for our residents to move forward in a fair and equitable process. So if the council wishes to choose 501, which is not what's in the best interest and is not deemed to be most equitable,
Yeah,
we can do that.
Through the chair, they're all within compliance, all those maps that were presented, were in compliance and with reasonable deviation. For myself, but still like move forward the map 501.
Same here. I think when you look at the 4 criteria, it more than meets it. And as far as, being compact in comparison to the other maps, as far as being contiguous, when you look at all the 4 factors, I think it's the best map.
I also want to stay with 501, and a big part of it for me that I didn't choose the town option was because I did notice that District 4, I just felt that that's like the older part of town. It has a lot of infrastructure needs, and it has a lot of just needs on its own. And there was other concerns that I had with that map, but I think those are my biggest things was the infrastructure needed, and I just felt like they were all clumped together. And so just for, I feel like the equitable purposes and just for everyone to have representation, I chose not to go with the town.
So quickly through the chair, so just to get clarity, so what is being recommended is the 501 map and the 10 map. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what I got from the conversation.
Okay.
And I just want to make my final comment in terms of the 501 map. Although we're moving forward with that, I just want to make sure that I articulate this. It is the one with the highest deviation at a 6.62%, even though it's under, but if we're looking at ideal, this is one of the maps that doesn't present that idealness in terms of the deviation.
And through the chair, just a question for either Mike or the consultant. Even if we make a full recommendation today,
we're still under the threat of lawsuit, right? So it doesn't matter whether we choose 5, we're still under the threat of a lawsuit. So just so that the public doesn't think that because we recommend something, we're out of that. We're still under the threat. So it's not, whether we go with 5 or 6, we're still in the risk. And that doesn't change anything that we decide today.
Can you hear me through the chair?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I understood the question. Are you asking whether or not the threat of litigation still exists? No matter what you did, no matter what you did today, is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. The threat of litigation will continue until you have finalized an action and approved a map for districting.
So it doesn't matter how long we take, it was still there. Right. Okay.
Well, yes, but the longer you take, the more likely it is that you will have somebody take action against you because you're creating a record that's saying that you are taking too long to do this. Don't forget the safe harbor language established. I can't remember, it's a 45-day or 90-day period for you to actually take action. That's by statute, the reasonable amount of time that the legislature thought you should be able to put this together. So the longer you take to do this, the more exposure the city has to potential liability.
Thank you for that clarification. So Megan, I think what we heard today then to move forward with the 10 map and our decision to change that based on the least possible deviation at a 4.73%. And then that's a 4 district, and then the 5 district map, which would be the 501.
Yeah, there was 2 things I think we need clarification moving forward with 501. Because it does create an election sequence question that was avoided when you went with the TAN map versus the 401, the previous. And then there was another question that was brought up about Terrace Street. And whether or not that's the 5 is the one map that has that little jog. And I didn't know if council expressed some concern about that, if there was any wanting to change that for District 2.
Through the chair, as far as the recommended election sequence, I'm okay with going with the recommended election sequence that's on the map versus the alternative election sequence. I'm okay with that.
So a sequence A versus sequence B.
Yeah. So I'm okay with that. And in regards to the terrace one, I think that I could see why it was done that way, just because it is the census tract, but I don't know how anybody else feels. I mean, that, I think you can go into District 1. I don't see that being an issue if you've already looked at the numbers at the school district. I mean, I think that's probably why it was done that way, just because it was it is a really weird shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I could comment on that, I think for me, it's how do you said that we can go back, and even though it's not my preferred map, that's not what I want, but I do want to make sure that you can go back. You said that you can go back and adjust it to make sure that it provides with a more equitable representation.
Yeah, so if you decide to move forward with push 501 to be reconsidered again at the next meeting, I can bring you a modified 501 side by side that pulls that area at the very north into District 1. Would you want the park also in District 1 or just the area north of the park?
I don't think anybody votes at the parks, and I don't think there's
Right.
at least I don't think
Right.
there's anybody there.
Yeah, there
I
should
could
be a
be wrong,
zero
but-
population.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay, so I think, Megan, we have the recommendations to be able to move forward to bring back to the council in September.
Yes.
Okay, council, thank you for that lengthy deliberation on this really critical item. And I want to just thank our public that is still with us and allowing the conversation for all of us to be able to listen to our reasonings and this is a very important process, and I just really want to say thank you to everybody that engaged in this process to make sure that it's a fair and equitable process for our residents and not for the council that's sitting up here, but for our public. So with that, then we will move on to item, the mayor's announcement and reports. And I bring up my council reports, and let me make sure I get that.
Where'd they go?
Oh, yes. Yeah, thank you, Mike. So, under my council reports, on the 25th of July, I did attend the funeral for Mr. Jack Franchoni. Again, our condolences to him and his family. And we are working on looking at how do we try to recreate the It's Happening in Soledad sign, and how do we try to bring that back, as it's an iconic sign to many of us who grew up here in Soledad, and also to those that didn't, right? Because that's really recognized throughout, not just the Tri-County area, but also through other areas as well. And then on July 26th, I just want to make this comment that I was not able to attend a special city council meeting that we had due to work-related items, as I was in the city of Los Banos all day as part of my job. So I know it wasn't detrimental that I be here because I couldn't vote anyways, but I just want to make sure the public understands why I was not here on that meeting. And then on July 27th, we didn't have the Monterey County Mayors Association meeting. So this was actually on a Thursday. And the reason we did that was because we met with Assembly Speaker Robert Rivas. And the Mayor's Association meeting was hosted by Mayor Kimberly Craig of the city of Salinas. And we were able to provide the speaker with different concerns that we had. So I just want to share with the public that I brought up the fact that we need ongoing funding to be able to construct affordable housing that meets all the different income levels that we have a need for here in the city. And I also reiterated the importance of reviewing the existing farm worker housing study that was conducted several years ago as part of the area that does provide a lot of data in regards to the housing needs, especially the housing needs of our farm workers. And given that we're in an area that's highly agriculture. And so those are the only meetings that I have, but I just want to say also take this opportunity to say congratulations to Soledad Police Department for National Night Out. I do want to say publicly that I was not able to attend. And the reason being was that one of my nieces got married and we were out of town. We didn't get home till late last night. And I tried never to miss National Night Out because I know it's really important to our community members and there's a lot of resources. So just want a big shout out to our police department and everybody else who made that a success. And then just to let the council know that we continue to engage with Andrew Ramirez from Townsend, who's been updating us on a lot of the Senate, the legislature is in session right now. They do go back in August 14th, but he continues to update legislative priorities, and we as a council put together on where some of those votes are, where some of those bills are in regards to some of the concerns that we have. And I think the last one I mentioned last time was ACA 1 with Assemblywoman Aguilar Curry that was dealing with housing and how we really can provide another tool in our toolbox to be able to ensure that we can adequately provide housing for the residents of our city. And that's all I have. So I will turn it over to now council members, announcements and reports, and then we'll go with Mayor Pro Tem Jimenez.
Oh, thank you. Attended the hot summer night, excellent job at the police department, a lot more cars, a lot of people out there. Good family event, was enjoyed by all, so kudos to staff who put that on. The officers, again, positive interacting with the public in a positive light. It was an event that they're looking forward to every year now. I secondly attended the National Night Out last night and brought my grandchildren with me and they had a great time, just walking around and collecting stuff and home. With all kinds of good fire hats to police badges. I think their favorite was a Soldat police badge. At least that's what I told them their favorite is. But other than that, we had no meetings for Solid Waste Authority due to July break, and we should be firing back up this month. Oh, the last thing before I go. Again, would like to give my condolences to the French only family. I was not able to attend due to the fact I was out of town. However, Jack was just more than just a pharmacy member, owner and longtime resident. He was also mayor and a council member of our community. So we've lost an important person in our community that gave back to by serving and giving him himself and time, and his wife Marceline was as well. She was the president of the Solid School Board when I served on the Solid School Board. Outstanding couple, and my condolences go out to the Franchoni family.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So just so you know, I know you were not here in the meeting, but we did acknowledge that he was also a mayor and also a council member and also adjourned in his memory, our meeting that we had. So thank you for reiterating, just the instrumental kind of figure he was for our residents and for the city of Soledad. Councilmember Chavez?
I didn't have any transportation agency Monterey County meetings in July. They usually go. They usually don't have meetings during that time period. We do have a South Salinas Valley Broadband Authority meeting that's happening tomorrow, so I will be attending that meeting tomorrow.
Thank you. Councilwoman Corralejo?
No, nothing.
Okay, Councilmember Cabrera?
Nothing.
Okay, so we'll move on then to any council member praises, and I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem. Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna open it up if anybody has any. Just feel free to give your praises.
If it's okay, I'll go ahead and just do mine. I just wanted to praise Eric Segura and his family. He was drafted for the MLB. Has decided not to move forward with the draft, although he did get drafted. And he will be attending Oregon State. So proud of him and his family because they've been working hard. He got invited to go out and show what he has in front of all the scouts and all the MLB teams. It was pretty awesome to watch. I got to see a little bit of it on ESPN, so it's kind of cool. Also, a shout out and big praises to Josiah Freeman, who is attending Fresno State. He was recognized by the mayor last year, and he is right now being considered one of the top wide receivers, not just at Fresno State, but in the nation. So he's being looked at right now. He's already been, more than likely, he'll probably get a shot at the being looked at by the NFL. Hopefully, if everything goes well, he doesn't get hurt, because you never know in sports. And then lastly, also to Vanessa Aguilar, who will be playing for the under-17 Mexican national team. So she just got called up also. So a lot of things going on with our youth here in our community, not just in sports and other things as well, but those are just some of those highlights. And then lastly, I just wanted to give my condolences to the Franchoni family. I did get to attend the celebration of life and got to see and talk to many of his family members, and it was wonderful for an event like that to happen, because I think that somebody who not only has been here as a mayor and council member and served this community through OSBA, which was an organization that he started, started the old the downtown Soledad beautification, or the old Soledad beautification committee that he started. Besides that, he was involved in so many things of making certain that the land that was acquired for the high school that we now have, he was one of those persons who made that happen. And he was just involved in so many different things. And I think that that milestone that he reached of 100 years, his in itself was just amazing. So.
Thank you. And so for me, I just want to echo, I had been also, I know Karen did a really nice segment on her and just, you know, acknowledging her parents and knowing the sacrifice that her parents have made to really make sure that she has those opportunities. And hopefully we as a council can also look at how we make sure that there's opportunities for other athletes that also have a lot of skill sets, but unfortunately, I know that we don't have that, the scouting, you know, that's needed here. And how do we make sure that, you know, we try to address that issue to make sure that a lot more of our kids that are really talented have those same opportunities. So shout out to Vanessa, shout out to her parents. I'm super proud of her. And also want to just acknowledge the police department also for National Night Out. I know it's a whole year to be able to prepare. A lot of the different resources that come, a lot of valuable information that's provided to our residents. So just want to say shout out, thank you so much for making sure that it happens. Despite it being really busy time for all and coming out of the 4th of July, it was a little chaotic. Having the opportunity for our residents to gather and to get really critical information, it's really important. So shout out to the police department. And also I want to say thank you and acknowledge the advisory committee members for the redistricting process. It's obviously not an easy process. And you heard the deliberation today. So I just want to say thank you for giving up your time. Thank you for having real thoughtful feedback in terms of how do we move forward in an equitable and fair process. So I just want to say thank you for your commitment to making sure that your voice was heard and that you provided recommendations to this body for consideration. Okay, so with that, we
Thank you. Yeah, so definitely after a challenging meeting like today, I think praises are real important to give. So just want to again echo praises to our police departments, to their volunteers, to everyone that supports all the different events that they do. You know, I know they just did Hot Summer Days maybe like 3 weeks ago, which was huge, and then now to do National Night Out, and I don't know how they do it to go from catching bad guys to going and smiling with the public. So thank you all over there. Really appreciate you guys. Also, there was, when I went to grab something to eat at the National Night Out, I ran into a lady. She works at Benito FLC. Her name is Sylvia. And the reason I bring her up and I want to praise her and thank her is because she has been doing National Night Out and volunteering for 16 years. I remember back in 2007, it was her, myself, and I believe it was Munguia, I want to say, who started National Night Out, and it did start at apartment communities. I used to work at an affordable housing community, and so that's kind of where it started, was at our affordable housing community. So that was super cool to see her. And then also just want to praise Officer McCray. I did usually hear a lot of complaints, but it's real nice when you get, you know, someone saying something positive. And there was a community resident who just went on and on about how amazing he was when she called for an officer, and he stayed there, he explained things, he let her know, hey, if something else happens, please give me a call. And she said she was surprised because she had never had, you know, such a positive interaction. So I just wanted to point that out. And then my last praise is just to our Soledad Unified School District teachers. They start tomorrow. There won't be kids, but they'll be probably just sitting there hearing instruction for a good 8 hours. So just want to say that we appreciate them and we thank them and welcome back to school.
Thank you.
I'll
Okay,
just
so
give one quick shout out and recognize Eva for being the master of ceremonies at the National Night Out. She kept the whole thing running and moving, and Cubs do their thing. They're over there participating, but excellent job. Thank you so much for doing that and volunteering. And again, it goes without saying with we got an outstanding police department who connect to our community. And in addition to that, Jesus and the communication department for getting out the word out there and just filling it and putting information stuff on our website about the districting, about all the different projects. And just want to public, don't forget that it's the 19th. We have our Orchard Park Lane grand opening. Those of you that skating out there, get out of there. It's not open till the 19th. You skaters, we'll see you all there. That's all I heard.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Unless. I just wanna, again, like everybody else, thank our, police department and our fire department for all the work that, they do. And it is incredible that you guys are, out there catching bad guys and then are so tender with the kids, so careful with them and how you speak to them. And I wanna thank you for that. And I also wanna, I recognize, Mr. Jack Francioni's, legacy in the town. I don't think there is any person in town that can that haven't been in contact with him. Last time I saw him was in the celebration for what was it in the cemetery where Memorial Day. I hope I could get close to 100, you know, and I can imagine all the sacrifices that he had to do, all the work. When people get to that age, they usually don't sleep much and they work a lot. And he kept working, and that is probably the role model that we have to follow in dedication and effort to our community. So thank you so much for your contributions to our city.
Thank you. So we'll move on now to future agenda items, and I'll start with Mayor Pro Tem.
None.
Okay, Councilwoman Corralejo.
I don't have future agenda item, but there is something that I would like a follow-up or just to know, during the 4th of July, there was illegal fireworks everywhere, like the whole Monterey County, and it was an issue everywhere. However, there was a media outlet, TV station that did a segment regarding illegal fireworks, and they showed our parade, which I was like, oh, I just saw the parade. I didn't have the sound. I'm like, oh, they're showing Soledad on our parade, and I was so happy. And then I put the volume. It was all bad. Like they didn't show any other cities. It was just focused on Soledad. They interviewed our residents, and I just I'm just curious, like, do we have a process to when something like this happens? Like, do we follow up? And it's like, hey, you know, obviously they have a job to do. I understand, but I am just curious as to why did they select our city? And is there any follow-up from us? And I know we have the freedom of, you know, a speech or the freedom of this and that. I understand, but just maybe if we have any connections or any. Yeah.
Who was the media?
KSBW.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I would suggest is whenever you see something like that, if you can reach out to Jesus directly, and then he can follow up, because I do think it's important to follow up. They may not do anything about it, but
yeah,
we need to change the narrative, so.
Definitely.
Thank you. Okay, Councilmember Cox?
Again, I just have one thing, not a big deal. I just wanted to see if maybe for the next meeting, if we could bring the new Little League board. I've been approached by a couple of them that they wanted just to introduce themselves. And so since they want to introduce themselves, give them the opportunity to come in and introduce themselves to the entire council. I'm sure we could do it in 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, something brief.
Yeah, if you want to have them connect with Darlene, we can make sure they're on the
Okay,
agenda.
perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Cabrera?
No, okay.
Okay, and for me, I'm gonna, I know that I've been saying this again, but I really want to sit down, maybe Megan, you, I, and the police and police chief in regards to the porta potties. We really need to address it. It's just, I know that we talked about it and there's been stuff that has been done in the past. But for me, I just want to make sure that, you know, there's a big emphasis in improving our city. The city has spent tons of dollars and ARPA money and CDBG state money to be able to improve our downtown, to be able to make sure that our community, and we still have ways to go, that, you know, the beautification component, but I think it's imperative. I don't want members or other people coming into our community and the first thing they see as we have our entrance is porta potties on the side. And there's specific FLCs that have them there. I don't know, you know, who do we need to talk to, whether it's Union Pacific in terms of right of way, like, can we reach out to our legislators to be able to help us with that conversation, to be able to address that. So I just really want to make sure that if we can have a meeting to really discuss how we move forward with addressing that. And then the other is I know we have the Citizens Police Academy participants that already have gone through that. But I had asked for them to come so we can give them proper recognition as part of the council. The council has the opportunity to meet them as well. Thank them for going through the process. So I really want to ensure that that happens. And then also, I know that there's the parent component or the participation of the members that Jesus is part of.
The Civics
The
Academy.
Civics Academy, yes, thank you. The Civics Academy. And so if we can do the same when they're done with that, if we can please bring them to the council meeting to make sure that we have an opportunity to congratulate them and thank them for spending time and really engaging in the process of understanding how local government works. So with that, council, there is no more items of discussion of city business, so I will. Thank you, everybody.